Hey friends, so a thing that I have had private conversations with friends about over the years is this worry about the great cultural clashes of our time and how, everything that we've witnessed up until this point, I would say up until a few years ago, um, has only been the tip of the iceberg, and that there are billions of people who are going to come online who are not online yet, or hundreds of millions of people who currently have internet access, but they haven't kind of participated in mainstream global internet discourse, and they are coming, and which is great, which is I'm excited for the rest of the world to come online. I'm excited for the music and the art and the but it's also going to be very chaotic and difficult for people to manage, and there's going to be a lot of culture shock, culture clash, all that stuff. And today I saw an example on Twitter that I feel kind of represents this, which is okay. So I live in Singapore, and Singapore is a neighbor of Indonesia, which is in Southeast Asia, right? So it's China, south of China, east of India, right? So you have India here, you have China here, and Indonesia is here, and Singapore is there, Southeast Asia. And in Indonesia, there's a place called Bali, and Bali is it was, where do we start? It was at some point, so wait, Indonesia was colonized by the Dutch, in like the 1900s, early 1900s, and it got independence about 50 plus ish years ago. And if you read up about the history of colonization in Indonesia, it was bad. Like people, it was horrible stuff happened. And here's the thing that kind of gets iffy, right? There's things about what people in the global south, people in Indonesia, people in Africa, people in India, even people have suffered things that just don't have as much attention in the global consciousness. So, okay, anyway, there have been people who have, for several years now, maybe over a decade at this point, have been touting this lifestyle of let's move to Bali, where the cost of living is cheap, food is cheap, everything, you can get massages for cheap from the locals, and the you can stay at a like lodgings are cheap, right? And so people move to Bali from all over the world, not just from the US, from Europe, from there are Singaporeans who visit Bali pretty regularly, and they have like yoga studios, and they have like martial arts studios, MMA, weightlifting, CrossFit, you name it. There's a whole industry in Bali and in parts of Thailand and maybe even the Philippines that's basically, it's at this point it's like designed to cater to foreign tourists who want, they see the photos on Instagram or wherever else, right? And it looks like a paradise. But it is, the people living there, and the people living there are really very friendly, and they are very sweet, and they like that. There's so many layers to this, and there are people in Bali, the locals, who are not comfortable with that, and it's a very complex issue. I think if there's one thing I can kind of put across for this whole thing, you could spend several years studying the history of Indonesia and Bali and colonization and gentrification and tourism money and all those things. There's a lot you can get into, and so the other half of the equation here is there are Black Americans who have come to Bali. They're not the first. There have been people coming to Bali for a long time, right? And so I'm skipping all over the place. But to kind of complete the story, there are a couple of Black Americans, women, queer, who moved to Bali, which is something that quite a lot of people do. And she wrote like a Twitter thread about her experience, and she wrote like an ebook on how you too can move to Bali and have an expat's lifestyle, basically, right? Kind of live large. I think she used the phrase like elevate my life, something, something. And I saw the photos that she posted. I read her thread, and I think her heart's in the right place. I think she's probably a good person. And she posted a picture of like I think a group of black people who are hanging out in Bali, who live in Bali, work from Bali, whatever they're doing there. And I love the picture. It looks so wholesome, and like everyone there, I felt good vibes. I think like I bet that if I went to Bali, I would love to hang out with them. And I'm pretty sure that most of the locals, at least those of them who kind of work in the tourism industry, or in the and, the people who work in the tourism industry, it's kind of their job to be nice to foreigners. So it's complex, right? And very often, if you're gonna hear grumpy, angry takes, it might be things like, from the children of the people working the tourism industry, right? So the relationship that people in Southeast Asia have with tourists, tourist dollars, westernization, Western culture, Western superiority. It's very complex. There's layers to it. On some level, you are grateful that they are coming to give you money, and you make a living from the tourism. At some level, there's some jealousy. It's like these people are higher status than us. They have more money and more power than us. There's like some resentment. It's like these people are at some level, it's like culturally emasculating, some people would say. And if you trace it back, like, it begins with, like, so it's been many years, but like colonization, I would say, is kind of, it's dehumanizing, right? Like, it happened to Japan when the West came. It happened to China's century of humiliation, right? Like, there's all, and it's very difficult to talk about colonization in India. It's painful experiences. I think this is the thing that I want to focus on, which is that, I still haven't finished the story. Oh my goodness. So the story is I'm a terrible storyteller. So what happened is these black women, they came to Bali, and like I think they came before the pandemic, and they've been staying through the pandemic, and they seem to be doing all right. And so she wrote a thread about how she's like happy, well adjusted, living her best life, blah blah blah. And there are people from Bali, I believe, who were upset about it. Indonesians who've been upset about it. And for context, like a few days ago, like in Malaysia, which is right next door to Indonesia, in Malaysia there was some drama happening about how there's like this Dutch lady in Malaysia who's in Kuala Lumpur, and she is like she's running like a batik, I think batik, or just like a Malaysian baju kurung, which is like the indigenous, or I'm not even sure if it's indigenous, but it's like just the local cultural attire outfits. And she's kind of she comes to Malaysia from the Netherlands, and she is selling local clothes back to the local people, presumably at a markup price. And she's like she's saying things like, oh, I want Malaysians to wear Malaysian clothes again. Like, it's this kind of neo-colonial, it's just, I feel it's disrespectful. I think so. Again, the like, people get into all the nitty-gritty details about every single thing, and they start pulling out their, oh, this is my background, this is my history, I moved to this country so many years ago, this is my, I did my thesis on this, I studied that, I've read the history, blah blah blah. But like, fundamentally, I think the question is always about respect. And respect is a difficult thing to talk about, because you can't demand it. And if you say publicly most of the time that you feel disrespected and you feel insulted, if you're saying this to the people who have disrespected and insulted you, it's fairly reasonable to assume that you will probably get mocked more for it, get insulted more for it, especially on somewhere like Twitter, which I love Twitter. Like, Twitter is my favorite place online these days. But I've curated this really loving, kind, supportive group of people. But like, the random kind of angry wave of random people on Twitter who, they have their own grievances and frustrations, and they're just looking for somebody to be frustrated at. It's very fun and easy to just look for somebody that you can insult, right? And insulting people about cultural grievances, national grievances, those things, like, there's no losing in the short run, right? Like, it's an easy move to just pick some country, insult somebody for the failures and flaws of their country, and there's nothing much they can say about it. And you feel like you've won, but what you've done is you've polluted the global commons. You've made the world a less trustworthy, less kind, less loving and nourishing place. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to do some cleanup duty. I'm trying to appeal to people with some common sense and some basic decency. I'm sure that's most people, right? And yeah, okay, so going back to the story, so these black women moved to Bali. They're selling an ebook on how to make it in Bali, and some people get angry. So there were very recently, people were angry at the Dutch lady in Malaysia for kind of preaching to Malaysians about how they should be. And then now there's this, and the people in Bali and Indonesia and just the Southeast Asian Twitter is kind of frustrated and annoyed. And you got to realize that it's, for these people, for us, right, it's not any one incident. It's part of a long history of continually foreigners coming in, thrashing the place. And again, not all foreigners do that, but like there is that history of every so often somebody's gonna come along, get drunk, smash shit, take off their clothes at a holy site, right? It's just disrespectful. And people feel disrespected, and there's a series of instances of disrespect. It's always from different people. But to the locals, that's the experience. They just continually experience more and more disrespect. It's difficult to deal with. Okay, then so some people fight back. They see her threat, and presumably they quote tweet with angry stuff, and the anger is disproportionate. It always is, right? The anger is always disproportionate because people are taking out all of their frustrations on this acceptable scapegoat in that moment. And people on across the pond, they felt, I think, understandably, I don't know if it's reasonably, but I think it's understandable, they felt that the retaliation against these black women was rooted in anti-blackness, like racism, right? And it's just so complex. I would say that there is some anti-blackness in Asia in general. In every Asian country, there's some amount of like, and I don't wanna put too kind of fixed a frame on it, but like, lighter skin is generally preferred in every Asian country, from India, Indonesia, Thailand, Cambodia. Wherever you go, the fairer you are, typically it's seen as your highest status. And the darker you are, and I'm pretty dark, right? I'm darker than some black people. I'm South Indian, right? And the darker you are, the more you're associated with, working class, laborers, lower caste in India. There's a whole bunch. I could talk about that for an hour. That's a separate thing. I don't really want to get into that right now. But I will make more videos and get into that later. But yes, so people felt that there was some anti-black sentiment in that. And, I don't feel that anybody in Asia can even be as anti-black as, let's say, racist. I don't even want to use the word racist, but I don't think it's possible for anti-blackness in Asia to be as malignant and contemptuous as anti-blackness in the States, simply because it's like mostly just alien. It's like they can't hate you because they don't know you. It's just, you're just different. And like I remember watching a Miles Davis documentary. Miles Davis is a fantastic musician. I mean, everyone knows Miles Davis is a fantastic musician, right? Miles Davis went to France at some point in his life, and he was saying that being in Europe as a black man was just, it's beautiful and heartbreaking in a sense, right? It's beautiful because he got to experience a kind of freedom and respect from peers. Respect is coming to the picture again. Respect from peers that he just didn't have back in the States. And I want black Americans to, I have black American friends and who have traveled, and they've said the same thing. And I want everybody to be able to experience that sense of freedom from persecution, from prejudice, from bigotry, from feeling worried about your life, from feeling worried that people are judging you based on the color of your skin. Like, all that sucks. It really does. And it's understandable that, so for some black Americans living in America, they have seen these, like, white guys go to Asia and do all the crazy shit that some of those white guys do. And again, not all white guys, right? But you know who I'm talking about. I'm sure even the white guys, you guys know the white guys I'm talking about, right? Who go to Asia and they just freaking carry themselves like they own the place, super disrespectful, so on and so forth. And, they kind of feel maybe like, those guys got to do it, why don't we get to do it? Or like, and not necessarily with the same level of disrespect, right? But like, can we have a little bit of disrespect as a treat? Can we be colonizers a little bit as a treat, right? I know it's silly, it's funny, it's, at the heart of all of this is really respect. Balinese people deserve to feel respected as well. As do black Americans. Everybody deserves dignity. Everybody deserves, and when you sit back and you examine what's going on, I'm making this video on my iPhone from my HDB flat in Singapore. I'm like middle class Singaporean, right? But like, you're not gonna see a video from a Balinese rice farmer making $100 a month. Like, you don't know what he really thinks. And if you ask him in person in Bali, he's gonna be smiling and laughing and saying, "Oh, welcome to Bali. Hope you have a good stay." You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that black Americans deserve to be bullied and abused for coming to Bali. And I think, again, I'm not Balinese, so it's not my place to say it. But I think it's understandable that Balinese people are upset with just they feel threatened, when, and again, not all of them. Some of them there will be some like edgy Balinese guys who are like, oh, I don't care, fuck other Balinese people. I just want more Westerners to come, fuck Indonesia. Like, you're gonna find every kind of person, right? In every kind of place. And my sense is we can all get along. I believe it. I believe that we can learn to appreciate that we all have challenges, we all have difficulties. Some people have it harder than others. And, so black Americans have it really rough in the States. But, what? Can you consider maybe, right? I'm not saying it's definitely true, but can you consider maybe that there are people elsewhere in the world who actually have it worse, but you don't even know about it because you don't even hear about it? Like, and it's, I don't want to make it like an oppression Olympics thing or who's suffering is the worst, And, I have shit to say about caste in India that I'm still working up the courage to talk about because it's so hideous and so fucking terrible. It's like, it's very, very bad, and nobody talks about it. So trying to talk about it it's like some emperor is naked kind of crazy situation, but that's not what I want to talk about today. And I'm not going to make every single one of my videos about this. I'm going to try and pace these out like maybe every 5 or 6 videos because again, we all have lives, right? I don't want to be the guy who is on YouTube kind of preaching at people, telling them how they should be. I just want to be friends with everyone in the world, right? And I just want us all to get along. I want us to be able to be honest with each other about our feelings and, when we feel disrespected and when we feel unsafe and when we feel threatened, right? Because that's what I see. I see Balinese friends who feel frustrated and threatened and attacked. And I see black American friends who feel frustrated and threatened and attacked. And, the things that are affecting them are different, but it's also kind of, I'm not saying it's the same, but like everyone's struggling, and if we are to make progress, we have to be willing to listen to each other. We may find out halfway through that, those people have it way worse than those people. Like maybe, but we have to have this common space where we are willing to hear each other out. And don't do death threats, guys, anybody, anywhere. Like it just never helps. Even if it's just in a moment of anger or whatever, it's just, I think that's always a bridge too far. If you find yourself about to threaten to kill someone on the internet, please just don't do it. Does that have to be said? I'm preaching. But, this is going to be 20 minutes, so I just want to stop this soon. I was all over the place in this video. Ask me any questions that you might have. Tell me your thoughts. And yeah, let's try to create maybe like a bi-weekly space. I know there's gonna be more drama. Like there's gonna be so much drama and just gonna keep escalating, and there's gonna be more and more of it every single year. So let's do our best to try and be fair to everyone. Let's hear people's stories. And sometimes people will say some things that I just rub you the wrong way. Like so when I'm reading, I don't want to get into specifics about my readings in this video in the last 2 minutes, but like sometimes you have to give people some space to say their piece, even if halfway through their piece you get frustrated because they are ignorant and naive and wrong. Like, yes, they are ignorant and naive and wrong, but like fixing that, correcting that is gonna require patience, which you may feel they don't deserve, right? But like I have been observing these things for like all my life. Like I've just always been interested in conflict resolution and understanding how conflicts resolve. And a lot of the sad thing is that a lot of people who are trapped in conflicts are not interested in resolving the conflicts. So let's find the people who want to help resolve conflicts, and let's do the work publicly so that other people can so that there are more voices than just the angry ones, right? Bali is a beautiful place. Uh, there were lots of wonderful people in the world. There's lots of terrible people in the world. Everywhere you go, right? This is crazy, crazy species. I love you all. Done.